Welcome, friends. You are listening to the Mind Body Alchemy podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Miramontes. This is where intuition meets education in the realms of spirituality, fitness, mindset, and more, all to create lasting change. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time listening, I'm so happy you're here. If you have been hanging out with me for a while and you are just happy that I am back, then welcome back. Thank you for being so awesome and hanging in there with me while I took a little hiatus. Something I've been thinking about lately, and something that's been coming up on client calls pretty often, is this idea around how much food to eat and struggling to stop at a certain point, even though you notice that your body has communicated that you're full. Now, if you have been around for a while, you know that I teach hunger-directed eating. You honor your body's signals, and we can use that as a fat loss tool to ensure that you are fueling your body appropriately and not overfeeding yourself. But because of our dieting histories, because of our environment, our culture, our traditions, all the things that we celebrate around and use food for, our relationship with food has gotten a little bit messy. And that means that we have to be a little bit more thoughtful when it comes to figuring out how our body is communicating. Sometimes we have a thought, I want to eat something, or a thought, I'm hungry, but a thought is not the same thing as a physical sensation when it comes to your body's communication. So we want to make sure that we are cross-checking those thoughts that we have with the physical sensations in our body to make sure we're getting the right communication. You still with me? Okay, so once you have been practicing that for a little while, you may find that you're sitting there, you're eating, you're enjoying your food, and you look down and you realize there was still quite a bit of food on your plate, but your body has said, you know what, I feel good. I feel light. I feel satisfied. I've had enough. And your brain comes chiming in with this battle like, oh no, you need to eat more, and there's just a few bites left, and what about this, and it tastes so good, and all the things. And that feels really uncomfortable to sit with. Because what you've been used to is clearing your plate. What you've been used to is meeting your emotional needs with food and your needs for pleasure with food and things like that. And well, pleasure and food can absolutely go together when you only use food for pleasure, meaning you don't get pleasure from a bunch of other areas in your life, but food is your main source of pleasure. You're going to have a lot harder time walking away from it. Now, I can do a full episode on that. In fact, I think I probably already have done some. But today, what I want to talk about is when you recognize that signal, that I'm done signal, and you start to hear your brain give you all the reasons why you shouldn't toss it in the trash or put the leftovers away. I want to talk about why that is. And something I've noticed is you may get to a place where, let's say that you have served yourself 3 pieces of pizza. And over time, you realize that you really don't need 3 pieces of pizza. You're someone that probably can have 2. And so you are really comfortable getting rid of that 3rd piece, and you're eating 2 pieces pretty regularly. And then you notice at about 1.5 pieces that you're getting full. And your brain wants to come in and say, listen, we are already someone who eats 2 pieces of pizza. You no longer eat 3. You have already given up so much. You really shouldn't have to give up another half a slice, right? Like that seems unreasonable. And then you go into this restriction mindset. And what I want to offer you here is that your brain is offering these signals as a way to say, like, you're committing to becoming someone who eats 1.5 pieces because you committed to being someone who usually only eats 2. But when you get to this point where sometimes 2 is satisfying, sometimes it's, 1 3/4, sometimes it's 1.5 or whatever. I mean, insert your own numbers here. This is all just random. There's no rule book about how many pieces of pizza needs to satisfy you. So don't take this too literally. It's an example. But when you get to that point where you have realized you never really need 3 pieces anymore, then your brain's going to go, well, now you're never going to need 2 pieces anymore. You're only always going to need 1.5. That just doesn't seem like enough. And you get out of the abundance mindset, you start getting into scarcity. And so you're unwilling at that point to experiment, to see what it would feel like if just today you ate 1.5 pieces of pizza. If just in this moment you ate 1.5 pieces of pizza, you walked away because what you have told yourself is I either eat my meal completely now, or if I walk away and I'm wrong and I get hungry or the urges are too much, I don't have permission to go back and finish my food. I don't have permission because that would be breaking another quote unquote rule. You are turning this opportunity to experiment and learn into a diet rule based on maybe some of the diet rules you had growing up or have adopted along the way in your adult life. So one thing that I want to offer you is just because you have made one big leap when it comes to these changes, your next step may not be an identity shift where you went from being a 3-piece of pizza person to a 2-piece of pizza person. That's an identity shift. But when it comes to maybe I just don't need this other half a slice because I'm noticing I'm kind of full, that doesn't have to be an identity shift, especially not right away. So you can just tell yourself in those moments, listen, just because I'm walking away from this half a slice now does not mean I will never eat 2 full pieces of pizza again. And I know that seems simple on paper. I know logically you're like, duh, but emotionally, I want you to listen in, eavesdrop on your brain and listen to how much panic and drama it offers up over this simple concept. It feels like you're taking food away. It feels like you're committing to never again eating a certain amount of food, and that feels scary. Whereas before, it may have felt a little bit easy because you knew you were overeating. You knew that you were eating an excessive amount, an amount that you would probably never need. But when it comes to what in your mind looks like what would be a reasonable amount, then your brain starts freaking out. So I want you to talk to yourself. I want you to convince yourself gently, lovingly, compassionately, and with curiosity to step away and give it a shot. Tell yourself, just for today, I'm going to leave a little bit of pizza behind. I may not be comfortable yet with 1.5 slices. Maybe I could be comfortable with just a couple more bites, and then I could walk away. Start seeing if you can ask yourself questions about how much you need to eat before you're comfortable. And then I want you to give yourself permission to go and finish that food later if you really want to. And I don't mean permission in a way that we check out and call ourselves a failure and here we go again and see, I never am going to be able to do this, blah, blah, blah. I want you to give yourself full permission and just say, if I want to eat the other half in a little while, if this is too uncomfortable, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it with my eyes wide open, meaning I'm going to listen to my thoughts. I'm going to listen to what my brain is telling me. And I'm going to lovingly and compassionately talk back. I'm going to have that conversation and say, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that your habit is to clear your plate. It's okay that your habit is to comfort yourself with food or to procrastinate with food or delay the chores that you have to do and things like that. The way that we understand why we're overeating is we keep our eyes wide open. We keep our ears open. We listen to what our brain has to say. And instead of shutting it down and saying, well, I've already failed, I'm not going to learn anything from this, and I'll try again tomorrow, we just say, I'm going to be there with the part of me that wants to be an overeater. I'm going to be present with the part of me that feels scared and scarce when it comes to walking away from a few extra bites. I want to be there for that version of me that needs a little bit more logic, hand-holding, comfort, reliability, so that I can tell that part of me, I'm not taking food away. I'm not taking food away anymore. We are getting to a place now where I am learning to eat exactly what I need based on what our body, and I say our, meaning our minds and our bodies and, you as the inhabitant of your body. That's why we can have these multiple conversations. Our body is communicating to us. We are going to listen to our body from now on. And sometimes I know that's uncomfortable because you may be really, really used to only making food decisions from your emotional mind, from the version of you that needs something from food other than energy, nutrition, and pleasure. So just keep in mind, sometimes you will feel like this is really hard to walk away from food. If you are a plate cleaner, you will find this difficult at times. But tell yourself the whole truth. Tell yourself what you're actually arguing for. And don't argue in a way that is hurtful and painful. Argue in a way that is loving and compassionate, meaning just give yourself the other side of the story. We're giving ourselves an opportunity to walk away from this food and see what happens. We're giving ourselves an opportunity to practice figuring out exactly how much our body needs just today. Because I don't know if I'm going to be a 1.5 slice of pizza eater for the rest of my life, but I know that right now my body's doing its job. It's very good at communicating. I just want to listen to it right now. There may be another day that I'm not ready for this. There may be another time where it feels a little bit harder. I'm going to give myself permission to be imperfect, to continue to practice, and not to be so binary in my thought process of, if I walk away at 1.5 pieces now, that means I forever and ever and ever have to be someone who eats 1.5 pieces of pizza. Ooh, 1.5 pizzas. That's probably a little much for most people. So just consider, how do you want to talk to yourself about these things? How do you want to work through the emotions, through the resistance, through the urges that you're feeling, so that you can start to collect some wins and some successes? Even if you have the conversation and then you go ahead and eat it anyway, that is called a win, because you're bringing awareness. You're giving your brain the other side of the story. And if you do that often enough, eventually that side is going to get a little louder and louder. But we have to be able to have that conversation inside of our minds. We have to be able to talk to ourselves and give our brains at least another option, so that the only option isn't eat all of this or be extremely uncomfortable. You might be really comfortable walking away with at 1.5 slices after you have this conversation 20 times or 30 times or 100 times. I don't know. It depends on how long you've been overeating, but give yourself that gift. Give yourself the opportunity to try. All right, y'all. That is what I have for you today. Please do the cool thing. Leave me a rating and review. Share this with your friends if you found it helpful. And of course, my inbox is open to you. Don't hesitate to reach out. Shoot me a question or a show suggestion. I love to hear from you. I love to hear what your takeaways are. And I will be back next time. All right. Bye, y'all.